In this Clash of Clans video, we interview an expert of the DragBat Attack Strategy. Now, this is one of the best strategies within Clash of Clans right now. It can be used across a variety of levels, but we are going to showcase examples from Town Hall 12. I will be sure to interview at the greatest depth so that you understand exactly what type of bases to look for, how to deploy the troops and spells, so you will want to watch right the way through in order to get all of the tips. Let's get into it. Alright guys, here is the first base. We have two of them to break down for you, and I have Neva of Croatian Army on the line. Thank you for joining me, my friend.
Hey Judo, it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. I always love to explain the expert attacks. Having you on the channel really just helps. Now, what we can do first is very briefly explain why you chose the DragBat strategy for this base so that people know what they are choosing base design wise for the DragBat, and then obviously we'll go into a bit more depth.
Okay, so basically, first thing which we saw on the base is the position of the sweepers and where are they blowing at. So you can see like both sweepers are blowing basically on almost the same side, which means it's pretty easy to come with drags from the opposite side, in this case from the town hall. And other from that, we were looking where could we use our heroes. Our queen can probably get one or maybe even two air defenses, which helps a lot with drags, and our king can also make a good funnel, which we'll see later on in the attack, without luring the CC, which is a huge thing these days, because oftentimes you see a CC placement right next to the town hall, which kind of prevents your Sui heroes, and that's luring a hound, and that makes issue with dragons. So that was like a perfect solution for us in this case.
Perfect. So straight away you're kind of identifying things. Why don't we dive into the replay and we can explain things in a little bit more depth. By the way guys, if you do want to join Croatian Army, Neva, where should people go to if they want to join your clan?
Yeah, they should just check our Discord server. It's mentioned in our clan description and on our Twitter page. So either works. Just join our Discord server, and from there we continue.
Perfect.
Continue on.
I'll be sure to link it down in the description of this video as well, guys. So starting off then, what happens? You talk us through the funnel in as much depth as you want, everything you feel people need to know.
So basically we dropped our queen at 8 o'clock, just to make a funnel at 8, so she can even take an air defense. And basically what we expected her to do was just clear that 8 o'clock section, and she did like a lot more than that. She did much more than we expected her to do. So she took care of that 8 o'clock air defense, and after that, we, as you can see, we just, in the meanwhile, actually, we're just doing a mini funnel with the wizard on 12, just to help our BK going from 12 to 3. We dropped another baby drag at 9 just to make a better funnel for our dragons. It's not a good idea to spread them too wide. Actually, our queen also took another air defense at 6. It was like just below the eagle, and we didn't even like expect that to happen, like never. So that's a huge bonus. And at this point we dropped our king. He actually found the Tesla farm, which was really good in this case. He clears all the Teslas without luring the CC, and then come the drags with the warden. So
okay, so if I pause for a second, just because I'm conscious the replay might be getting too far ahead of us. Obviously, to summarize what you have said there before we move on, your queen basically needed to funnel this 8 o'clock to kind of 9 o'clock. I know you reinforced with the baby dragon in order to take that. The king is intended along with that couple of balloons in order to funnel kind of this area, which, as you said, the dragons can then come in. They are not right on top of each other. They are spread out a little bit, but they're not too spread out like you said.
Right, it's narrow enough for them to go into a base. Like with one rage and warden covering them, it's narrow enough.
Okay, so you just as a general rule of thumb for people, they do want kind of a bit of a spread, but not too much of a spread?
Not too much. Like, I'd say like ideal spread would be like something within a rage spell, like so you can cover like most of your dragons with a rage. If you don't cover like a few of them, it's not a big deal, but that should be something you're looking at approximately.
Yeah, and a good example there, the Grand Warden's aura as well. You don't want some dragons to be outside of that. Ideally, if you can keep them within that, that's obviously a good thing there as well.
Yeah, agree.
Like you mentioned, coming in behind the sweepers is the most important thing in terms of when you're sending your dragons in, but you do want to hit that town hall early on, and I can see that you're doing that straight away, right into that area. Any reason you decided to use the rage there? Is it just to get through that town hall early?
Yeah, just to get through the town hall, to speed up things and to give all our dragons like a boost in the beginning. And then we like, I just wanted to emphasize the importance of the enemy queen in dragon raids. Like most people don't really care about queen in dragon raids, but actually she can actually take down quite a few of your dragons if she's in a good spot. If you don't have your dragons raged or you don't have them under warden ability or something. So this was actually also ideal for us because we just activated our warden ability over the town hall, which also lasted long enough for our dragons to kill the queen, which was right behind the town hall. So that worked perfectly as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another point there, along with what you're saying, is obviously the queen being very central. Let's say she was down here next to this cannon. There's a chance she could pull the dragons down out of the route from where you're wanting them to go as well. So that's very important to mention. And I think definitely something in this base design that's important. I want to note the slammer as well. Is that a troop or a siege, sorry, that you will typically bring in with the DragBats, like all of the time?
Yeah, like mostly. In rare occasions we will bring a blimp, but that's not really often. In this case, we brought a slammer and dropped it at around 2 o'clock just to make the pathing for our dragons a bit more narrow. So they can like stay in the middle and not wander around on that right infernal side. And we just used our slammer and balloons inside, hasted them, and they took out the whole section.
That whole section, yeah. And it's lovely to get that multi down as well. So let's continue with the replay moving through. Honestly, you probably didn't even need the bats here. This is how strong you guys were moving through this base. At
this point, it was like one multi-inferno, and even it went down like now, and it was only one witch tower left, and if you think about it, you don't even need a bat at this point,
Yeah, exactly. A beautiful demonstration, beautifully broken down by yourself as well. And I know that the next base, whilst it's different, it does explain the DragBat very well, so we'll move on to that in a second. But a beautiful DragBat attack, and this was part of your victory in the Clash Cup versus King Jeffrey. It was a fantastic watch. A brilliant explanation of the first base. This is the second one, and I love how this one is broken down as well. I know you mentioned very briefly to me there whilst we were off recording how the bats are used in a completely different method on this one. Do you want to briefly explain why that is for this base, and then we'll dive into the recording again?
Yeah, sure. So in last attack we used a bat wave method of deploying bats, which is very powerful, but cannot be implemented like on every single base. Like this one. On this one we used a bit different approach, which is a bat bomb. which is also like very powerful if you use it correctly and on a correct base. So we decided to use a bad bomb here because, as you can see, around 2 or 3 o'clock on the rightmost inferno, there's like a chunk of 3 air defenses in a small area. So it makes a lot of sense to do a huge bad bomb there to take them all down.
Definitely, and one thing I can note there as well is that one freeze spell will hit both the wizard tower and the multi, so you get an added bonus there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So just very briefly before we get into the attack, you've already kind of identified, yes, there's 3 air defense. It would be good to get them down so that the dragons aren't fighting them, but just so that people kind of understand at home, why is this base better to use the bat bomb, which is deploying the bats inside the base, versus a bat wave where you deploy them on the outside? Like, I guess my question that someone could ask is, why wouldn't you deploy the bats here to come through?
I guess you could potentially do a bat wave as well, but in this case we were coming with our dragons from 10 o'clock. And it didn't really make any sense to come with a bat wave from 2. It's like totally opposite sides of the base and directions, and they don't really work simultaneously.
Okay.
And that's like the basic reason why we decided to use a bat bomb. Like while the dragons are in the core of the base, we will just do a quick bat bomb on that section, which will help clear it out, and at the same time, it will help tank for the bats and tank for the dragons, sorry, and help them out clear the rest of the base.
Perfect. Yeah. So beautifully explained, and again, I guess it stops the dragons from then moving up towards the air defense if you're just wiping them out a lot quicker.
Yeah,
you're keeping the
exactly.
dragons moving through from 10 o'clock straight the way through the base, as you mentioned.
Right.
Totally. So why don't we do similar to the last one? We'll start the replay, and feel free to explain any of the funneling, or we can pause whenever, whatever you think is appropriate for people to learn in terms of breaking down this base for the DragBat.
Okay, sure. So first thing which we noticed is that our queen could potentially take down the enemy town hall from outside without even wall breaking or using a jump spell. Yeah, like this decoration at 12 used to work before, but Supercell recently fixed that, so it doesn't work anymore. So this is a pretty older base, and we noticed that, so we used our queen at 12, and a baby dragon next to her just to help out, take the archer tower and all the trash buildings at 11, so she is directly forced to the town hall.
Definitely. So just very briefly for anyone at home that doesn't realize this, previously the P.E.K.K.A statue here, or any decoration for that matter, would affect troop pathing, particularly the Archer Queen, so that she couldn't stand basically on top of it. She would be stuck behind it, and from behind she would be too far to reach the town hall, whereas because of the change she can now reach it. So definitely brilliant advantage that you've got there, and well identified.
We also use one wizard at 1 o'clock to break down the funnel, so she doesn't go the wrong way. And we also expected some Teslas to be around, but didn't know exactly where to expect them. But luckily, our queen stepped back and took down the town hall. Like, if she hadn't done it, we would probably have to use our backup plan B, or to use a slammer there or something, which could potentially ruin the attack. And yeah,
I guess I have 2 questions for you there, just from what we've discussed before we move on with the replay. You mentioned you figured there was Tesla around there. Can I just ask why in the scouting you figured there's Tesla at the top? Anything that popped out to you?
There's a little gap at 11 which could fit the Teslas in, like below the gold storage, or there, or like in any of the dead zones around the town hall, like near the torches. I don't know, it's just some feeling.
Having the town hall skewed?
Yeah, like we thought he could be baiting it out with the Tesla farm. Like it seemed like too easy to get it, so
Yeah,
figured
yeah.
he could use some Teslas there to bait it out.
Trolling you with the decoration glitch, making you think that you were taking advantage of an old base and actually it's a new one with Tesla all around it.
Possibly even that. So we were a bit skeptical about that.
Yeah, totally. My second question before we move on, again, these pro tip interviews are always meant to be a little bit more in depth, guys, so they are a little bit kind of slower throughout each raid, but hopefully provide you with immense value. You mentioned plan B in terms of sending the slammer. Can you quickly run over what your plan B was for this base?
Okay, so basically this whole war was one hit per base.
Yeah.
So like securing the 2-star is like a huge importance. So if our queen hadn't down the town hall, we would need to drop our stone slammer there, and we couldn't even do it right away, but we would need to wait like for 51% to activate the town hall or something else to activate it, you know.
Yeah.
Just to secure the 2-star, which would like ruin the chances of a 3, but you gotta take the 2 in wars like
in a
this.
one attack format.
Yeah,
exactly. And yeah, I mean, a common backup plan, obviously saving the slammer, but it's interesting to know that, and it's important that people do have them plan Bs in the back of their head as well, especially, let's say, for the clan war leagues. I know not everyone competes in these external tournaments, but the clan war leagues you only get 1 attack, so you've got to have them plan Bs in your mind. So thank you for covering them couple of kind of ad hoc questions. Let's continue with the replay then. We'll watch the queen take out the town hall, and then we'll move on from there.
Right, so as soon we pop our queen ability, we drop our king at 9 and force him to go towards 6, which he will do right now. And once again, we're starting our dragons from 10 o'clock, which is could you just pause here for a second so I can explain? So once again, as you can see, the sweeper position, we're also coming like behind the sweepers. No sweepers are pointing at our dragons, and it's also a narrow pathing for the dragons, which covers one rage or the warden ability. It's quite good to enter. So I think our queen lured the hound before she died somehow, and the hound continued following the king. But at the same time, I think we already dropped an archer at 3 o'clock, just to be sure. Just to be sure, like when our king dies, the hound goes immediately to 3 o'clock, not to stay like somewhere in the base to mess with our dragons, you know, because that can happen quite often.
Definitely. I was going to ask you that question, actually. I remember watching this attack, and I remember obviously casting it about the archers at the corner there, but you already covered that. So beautiful. We've mentioned, again, sweepers. You guys always want to try and come behind sweepers. Now, I guess, is there ever a situation where you would fly into a sweeper with the dragons?
Yeah, there actually are a lot more situations like that. To be honest, from my own experience, I can say there's not really much. There's not really many situations where I can fly in behind the sweeper. So, like, if you have to fly into a sweeper, it's not a huge deal. Like, you can maybe freeze it once or something. But you really got to think more about the bet value and your hero's value as well. Like.
Okay.
That's
so
more
the dragons
important.
Can get through it.
Yeah, that's more important than the sweeper direction, in my opinion.
Perfect. I guess this one though would be a nightmare with 3 air defense.
Yeah, like flying in there would be an disaster.
Definitely not recommended. Okay, beautiful. So we've mentioned pathing. King on this side, queen has already taken out the top, dragons flying through. We've got the 2 archers in order to pull that hound back across. I notice you've already started with the slammer at the bottom. Was there any reason to start that earlier than the dragons?
Yeah, actually, so there was an arch tower which already went down currently. So at 5 o'clock there was an arch tower. We dropped 2 loons first on that, just to break down the funnel for the slammer, so he can go from the mortar to the cannon and then the inferno where we want him. So we dropped him a bit earlier just because he has a lot of like stuff to clear, and meanwhile, while our dragons are coming to the middle, we expected that slammer to clear down the whole inferno section, so we could use it as a funnel to keep our dragons go towards the eagle.
Yeah. Perfect. Sounds fantastic. So let's continue with the replay, and then we can pause if need be in order to greater explain things.
Okay, so right now our dragons come with the warden. Our slammer actually found some Teslas down there, which is also a good thing. We have a haste for our loons from the slammer, but then I think, we found out a tornado trap down there, which messed up our slammer a lot, and our slammer didn't even end up getting that inferno, which wasn't really a huge issue, but it's still not ideal. So in these attacks, you really gotta expect something not to go to the plan, like not really always things will go ideal for you. So you gotta expect something not to go ideal,
Especially in my case. But yeah, I guess you've properly identified though where the bats are going to be, and even if things do go a little bit south, then if you've clearly identified things and you've got a solid plan, you can get through that. One question I did have for people, I think I already know the answer, but let's cover it. You had a lava hound in front of the dragons. When would you and when wouldn't you send a lava hound in front of the dragons?
To be honest, in this case, we didn't even need it. This wasn't me attacking, but if it was me, I probably wouldn't even bring it, because the air defense, if I remember correctly, was at 10 o'clock, which is and on the first layer of the walls, which is relatively close, like dragons can come to it quickly. I personally would bring a hound if there was a sweeper pointing at my dragons. So in this case, that wasn't really the case, but still, like we couldn't lose anything with bringing it, so we just made sure we brought it, and we aren't losing anything with that.
Brilliant. Well, I'm glad I asked the question, because I wasn't aware necessarily of using it typically if there's a sweeper pointing in that direction. I was going to mention, obviously, if there's not a single there, it can be good to test for black air bombs and just tank, particularly when there's multiple expos and then you've got your air defense. Yeah, it's only 10 troop capacity more than a dragon, so it can be worth it as long as that hound isn't going to get fried straight away.
Right, like a bit of tanking is always useful. Like the count is 30 camp space, and another dragon is 20, and we already have like 10 or 11 dragons, so like another dragon wouldn't really mean much, but a one hound would mean much more.
Definitely. Okay, so we'll continue on. I know the bats are going to come in relatively soon, and you did mention you want to wait until the dragons get into the center to try and somewhat tank some of these defenses as well when the bats come in.
Yeah, our main issue was, could you just pause for a second? Our main
sorry.
Our main issue was like this Whist tower below the eagle. It could potentially ruin our bets, so we decided to wait with the bets as long as we could. So the dragons could come in there and tank the Whist tower for us. It wasn't really ideal, but it worked out pretty nicely, as you can see.
Definitely, yeah, because I remember this, and I can see already some of your dragons are taking hits, and like you said, I guess it's okay to take the fire of some of them, as long as you're then, getting the value from it.
Right, and now the bet comes in, and as you can see at 6 o'clock, our dragons are tanking the Whist tower, which I was talking about, and that made our bets like clear everything out there, and it worked out pretty smoothly.
It certainly did. That was beautiful, and I noticed you hold on to a loon as well in order to help with cleanup. Not that it was needed, but a brilliant touch as well, just to keep an eye on.
Right. We also always have a few minions. You can see one minion at 2 o'clock, one minion at 6:37, and it always helps out to to protect yourself
Clean
from
up.
potential time fails or any issues. Yeah, you never know what can go wrong.
Totally, and I guess that loon as well is a bit interchangeable. You could use it to tank a wizard tower, you could use it to clean up, but that was two fantastic breakdowns of the DragBat. I know that my viewers are going to love it. I personally loved it as well, so thank you, Neva, for joining on the channel. Any closing words before we close the video?
I just like to thank you for having me involved. It's really a pleasure to be here and to present something to you and your viewers. I hope they will find it entertaining, and that's basically it. Yeah, thank you once again.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. Like I said, guys, if you're interested in joining Croatian Army, share some love for them down in the comments, and you will find a link in the description to their Discord. Maxed out Town Hall 12 competitive players are what they are looking for, I believe. Anyone else?
No, basically only Town Hall 12s at this point.
12s.
Yeah, Town Hall 12s.
Yeah, I figured. So there you are, guys. Town Hall 12s. You know where the link is, but that wraps it up for this one. By the way, I did an interview with an expert on the lava loon previously. If you are interested in seeing that video, I'm going to link it on your screen. But that wraps it up for this one. Thank you again, Neva, for joining me. Take care, guys.